Thug slapped an 81-year-old veteran in a diner, then his son walked in with a biker gang. It was a quiet morning at Ruby's diner. Sunlight came through the big windows, lighting up the tables and shining off the salt shakers. The smell of bacon and fresh coffee filled the whole diner. At the far end of the room, an old man sat in a corner booth by himself. His name was Elijah McCann. He came to Ruby's every morning at the same time. He always wore the same red flannel shirt, and he always ordered black coffee and toast. Elijah was in his 80s. A Vietnam veteran. Everyone in the diner knew him as the polite old man who tipped well and never caused trouble. But today was different. A younger man stood at the front, yelling at Dana, the waitress. He was tall, with a big chest and a loud voice. His name was Royce. He was angry about his bill, saying he didn't order what was written down. Dana stayed calm, but her hands were shaking. She tried to explain, but Royce wasn't listening. He slammed his hand on the counter. "I'm not paying for something I didn't eat," he shouted. Before we continue, drop a comment and let us know which city you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a story. Now, sit back and enjoy. Everyone turned to look, including Elijah. The old man didn't say anything. He just watched from his booth, quietly sipping his coffee. Royce noticed him staring. He didn't like it. "What are you looking at, old man?" he said. Elijah didn't answer. He just kept his eyes on Royce, calm and steady. That seemed to make Royce even more angry. "You think you're better than me," he snapped. And before anyone could stop him, Royce walked across the diner and hit Elijah hard across the face. The sound of the slap echoed through the room. A fork dropped. A baby started crying. Dana gasped. Elijah's head turned from the force. His cheek turned red. But he didn't fall. Slowly, he raised his hand to his face and looked down at the table. He didn't say a word. No one moved. The whole diner went quiet. People stared, shocked. Some looked away. No one stood up to stop Royce. No one said a thing. And Elijah, still holding his cheek, just sat there, alone in his corner booth, wondering how the world had come to this. The diner was quiet after the slap. Too quiet. Royce walked back to his seat like nothing had happened. He laughed with his friend at the counter. Dana stood frozen behind the register. She looked like she might cry, but she stayed quiet too. Elijah sat in his booth, still holding his cheek. His coffee had gone cold, but he didn't notice. He didn't feel fear. He'd been through worse in his life, much worse. But something about the moment cut deep. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way everyone looked away. Then the front door opened. The bell above the door gave a loud ding, and the whole room turned to look. 5 men walked in, wearing leather jackets, boots, and dark sunglasses. They moved slowly, like they owned the room. People stared, unsure whether to be scared or relieved. On their backs were matching patches with a motorcycle club name, Iron Reapers. But it was the man in the middle that caught Elijah's eye. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a thick beard that was turning gray. A long scar ran down his left cheek. He looked like someone who had been through a lot and survived all of it. He took off his sunglasses, and his eyes locked on Elijah. Elijah's hand dropped from his cheek. "Mason," he said softly, barely above a whisper. The man didn't answer. He just walked straight to Elijah's booth and sat down across from him. Then, without saying a word, he reached out and placed his rough, tattooed hand over his father's. Elijah's eyes filled with tears. They hadn't spoken in almost 8 years. Not since Mason had left town and joined the biker life Elijah never approved of. But here he was. The room stayed quiet. Royce, still at the counter, finally noticed something had changed. He turned around and saw the bikers. His smile faded. He stood up. "What, the old man needs his little gang now," he said, trying to sound tough. Mason didn't even look at him. He kept his hand on Elijah's and spoke calmly, but firmly. That man you hit? He's my father. The room went still. Mason's voice dropped lower. He's a war veteran. And he's done more for this country than you ever will. Everyone could feel the weight of those words. And for the first time all morning, Royce looked scared. Royce stood frozen by the counter, his tough guy act starting to fade. Mason sat quietly across from Elijah, still holding his father's hand. The other bikers stood behind him like a silent wall. No one had to say anything, their presence was enough. Royce glanced at them, then at the door. His face turned pale. "You think this scares me," he muttered, but his voice shook. Mason finally looked up at him. His eyes were sharp and cold. "You hit an old man who couldn't fight back," he said. "You think that makes you strong?" Royce didn't answer. He didn't even blink. Mason leaned forward, his voice steady. "My dad faced real fear. Real pain. In a real war. He didn't flinch then, and he didn't flinch when you hit him. You're not scary, Royce. You're just loud." Royce's mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door. The bell jingled again, and just like that, he was gone. The whole diner let out a breath. Dana leaned on the counter, her hands finally steady. A couple near the window started clapping softly. Others followed. Not loud, but real. Elijah looked at Mason, eyes shining with pride and something deeper, something long buried. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. Mason smiled a little. "Yes, I did." They sat together in silence for a few moments. Dana brought over 2 fresh mugs of coffee and placed them on the table with a smile. "On the house," she said. Customers slowly came by the booth offering quiet words, nods, even apologies. A few said they were sorry they hadn't done something earlier. Elijah just nodded and thanked them. He didn't need their guilt. He was just glad to see some respect. "I was wrong about you," Elijah said after a while. "About the path you chose." Mason shrugged. "We were both wrong about some things." Elijah looked down at his coffee, then back up at his son. "Let's not waste any more years." Mason nodded. "Agreed." From that day on, they met at Ruby's every week. Mason often brought a few of his biker brothers. The other customers never looked at Elijah the same again, not just as the quiet old veteran, but as the father of a man who stood up when it mattered most. And the diner? It wasn't just a place to eat anymore. It became a place where respect came back and family healed. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button and don't forget to turn on notifications, so you'll be the first to catch more amazing stories when they drop. I truly appreciate your support. I don't take it for granted. See you in the next video. Bye for now.